Here's the thing, I don't think the first episode of Batman the Animated Series gets the credit it deserves. On Leather Wings, directed by Kevin Altieri and written by Mitch Bryan, is not only an amazing Batman story, but it sets the tone and narrative structure for the entirety of Batman the Animated Series. In this video, I'm going to go over why this Batman episode was so groundbreaking, and hopefully after watching this video, you'll start to miss Kevin Conroy, Batman himself, just as much, if not more, than I do. But before we move on, please be sure to give a like and subscribe to Tree Root Comics. You do not want to miss out on our awesome content. Now, what's so fascinating about the first episode of this series is that within the first 10 seconds of the story, Gotham was perfectly established as a character. We all know that Gotham is this dark, brooding, and gritty place, but this Gotham is unique in its own right. This picture of Gotham tells 1,000 stories. The deep shadows and muted color palette and the animation style emphasizes an atmosphere of tension, fear, and decay. I can only imagine how small and hopeless you'd feel in a city with that much rain and towering skylines. And the music complements Gotham's mood perfectly. The iconic score composed by Shirley Walker adds to the atmosphere of mystery and suspense. Right off the bat, the emotional stakes are very high. Because right off the bat, we know that Gotham is a city in desperate need of saving. Why? Because you can instantly tell within the first 10 seconds of the episode that this city has monsters. Monsters that people are powerless against. The episode starts off in a fantastic way. There are broadcasts and reports of a winged monster terrorizing the people of Gotham. As we're moving through the dark and broody atmosphere of Gotham, a security guard gets viciously attacked by a creature of the night at Phoenix Pharmaceuticals. And guess who gets blamed for it? Who else but Batman himself? I guess we can't really blame the people of Gotham for this. Batman operates in the shadows and isn't exactly transparent with everyone, but nonetheless, it shows us just how unforgiving the city can be. Even people as great as Batman can get blamed for atrocities. It's so unforgiving that the newspapers are reporting on the Gotham City's police force declaring a war on Batman. I like how key characters like Jim Gordon, Harvey Bullock, and Harvey Dent were expertly woven into the narrative. After the security guard got seriously injured by the winged monster, Harvey Bullock tries to convince the mayor to fund a vigilante task force to catch Batman. What I love about Harvey Bullock is that within the first 5 seconds of seeing his character, you know he's crooked. He's messy, he's sleazy, and compared to Jim Gordon, he just doesn't have that much integrity. It's also clear that he's power hungry. He's like one of those cops who wants to enforce the rules, but not for the sake of justice, but for the sake of exerting power, domination, and control over the streets. He's brilliantly juxtaposed with Jim Gordon's more calm and rational approach to keeping Gotham safe. And it's worth mentioning that Harvey Dent's first appearance in the episode is really brilliant as well. It makes sense for the district attorney of Gotham to be in a meeting with the mayor and 2 chiefs of police. His first appearance sitting in the dark corner of the room, sitting on a chair with his suit on while flipping his infamous coin, really does a great job of showing us his sharp and cunning nature while foreshadowing his eventual transformation into Two-Face. Batman's first appearance in the episode wasn't action-packed or bombastic, but guess what? It didn't need to be. His introduction made sense. After he got blamed for that vicious attack, he investigates. Man, I just love the narrative flow of this story. First, a creature viciously attacks a civilian, therefore the GCPD start a vigilante task force, but Batman gets blamed for the crime. Therefore, he investigates to figure out what's really going on. Every scene justifies the next scene. Anyways, Batman sneaks into Phoenix Pharmaceuticals, but 2 young scientists spot him. They call the cops, and as a consequence, Harvey Bullock goes to Phoenix Pharmaceuticals with his vigilante task force while Batman's investigating. What I love about Batman's introduction is that he's not introduced as this violent, action-packed hero. Instead, it's this intelligence and resourcefulness that's shown first. He uses a non-violent way to get past security, and he uses his advanced technology and wits to investigate the crime scene. It's pretty amazing how this guy didn't really beat people up to get what he wanted. Even the Dark Knight cannot avoid that introduction for Batman. But anyways, the stakes are higher than ever now because Batman is now stuck at Phoenix Pharmaceuticals with an entire vigilante task force surrounding him. He didn't even use that much violence to get out of that sticky situation. When the guards were closing in on him, he snuck through an elevator shaft to get away. He only took one guard's gun away from him and rammed him up the wall to keep him quiet. When another guard threw a tear gas bomb in a room full of flammables, Batman grabbed the guard and jumped out of a window to escape. He survived in the most Batman way possible by throwing a bat grapple on a nearby tree to land softly. I'm pretty sure that's not athletically possible to do that while carrying another man, but it's still fun to watch nonetheless. Anyways, Batman continues his investigation. The next day, he goes to Dr. Kirk Langstrom's laboratory to try and get him and his team to analyze the samples. He's a scientist who studies bats with his wife and stepfather. He must be a really brave guy because I never have the balls to work with my family 24/7. Just a heads up kids, the devil is your mother-in-law. Anyways, Bruce figures out that the scientists are lying to him and trying to hide something, so he decides to pay them a visit as Batman. So it turns out that Dr. Langstrom and his stepdad were developing a compound that can turn a person into a humanoid bat. The stepdad did it because he believed bats are the next step in human evolution. Kirk Langstrom did it for an entirely different reason. At first, when he explained his reasoning, he sounded like a one-dimensional supervillain. He didn't do it for the betterment of humanity, he just did it for his own self-indulgence. And then boom, Langstrom downs a vial and turns himself into Man-Bat. Now, here's a quick rundown of Man-Bat from the comics for context. Man-Bat was first introduced in Detective Comics issue 400 in June 1970. He was originally portrayed as a supervillain, but later incarnations showed Man-Bat as a sympathetic villain or an anti-hero. In the original version of his origin story, Kirk Langstrom was a zoologist obsessed with bats. He developed a serum with the intention of giving humans a bat's acute sonar sense. He thought that his technology would be especially useful to the military and to those with disabilities such as blindness. I guess the lab couldn't get the funding to test the serum on others, so he decided to test the serum on himself. Unfortunately for him, the serum transformed him into an anthropomorphic feral half-bat hybrid, lacking sapience and acting purely on animal instinct. Time and time again, Batman would subdue Man-Bat and reverse the effects of the serum. Although time and time again, Langstrom would take the serum, but the more he used the serum, the more he was able to retain his sanity and use his powers for good. In the animated series, he probably started developing the Man-Bat serum for those same reasons. In my opinion, I think he wanted to use his genius for the betterment of mankind. But what definitely became clear is that somewhere along the lines, he started liking it. He craved the power, the freedom, and how the Man-Bat serum just completely let him ditch his civilian identity and let him completely surrender to his animal instincts. Like I said earlier, at first I thought he was just a one-dimensional villain for just taking a serum and going batshit crazy. But after watching the episode for a second time, I noticed something really subtle. After he transformed into Man-Bat and attacked Batman, Kirk's wife entered the room. Kirk must have kept this a secret from her because he became really ashamed of her seeing him that way. And just like that, Man-Bat went from a one-dimensional villain to a sympathetic one. After that brief scene, it clicked for me the parallels between Man-Bat and a struggling addict. Like a lot of people struggling with addiction, Kirk fell on some hard times and turned to substances that made him feel better. Is Man-Bat as sympathetic as Mr. Freeze? No, but he's still pretty sympathetic nonetheless. So anyways, Kirk starts to feel ashamed and flees the scene. But Batman manages to get a hold of him with his grapple gun. And what we get next is a visually stunning sequence. Now this animated sequence compared to what we got in the Spider-Verse movies may not look that great, but keep in mind this was from 1992. The state of animation technology was not nearly as advanced as it is today. Feel free to correct me in the comments, but a majority of what we're seeing here is hand-drawn 2D animation, which I imagine must have been quite the project because this sequence really looks three-dimensional. Anyways, Batman's hanging on for his life while Man-Bat is taking him for a ride around the city. And this is all happening while Jim Gordon, Harvey Bullock, and the rest of the GCPD is trying to take them down. Eventually, Batman manages to subdue Man-Bat. He gives him a good couple of whacks until he's unconscious. Now, like I said earlier, Batman's athleticism is pretty unbelievable here. He manages to hang on to Man-Bat while he's flying across the city at high speeds and knock him out unconscious. But I will say this, I like how he didn't come out of that experience unscathed. After he beat Man-Bat, he had a couple of cuts and bruises. So anyways, Batman carries Man-Bat back to the Batcave and helps Kirk Langstrom until he returns back to his human form. After he got better, Batman returned Kirk to his wife and the story comes to a close. In the span of just a little over 20 minutes, On Leather Wings sets the stage for Batman the Animated Series. It introduced Gotham as a character masterfully, key characters were introduced without creating a narrative mess, and it set the stage for killer animation and morally complex villains for Batman to take on. We all know that the late Kevin Conroy's performance was nothing short of fantastic. His Batman and Bruce Wayne performances were like night and day. While Batman's voice was authoritative and powerful, Bruce's voice was way more laid back and approachable. One thing that I thought was worth mentioning about this episode is that Batman wasn't really that violent. For a guy that was trained by the best martial artists in the world, it's pretty impressive that he avoided violence unless the situation called for it. He only took out one guard from the Vigilante Task Force and beat Man-Bat into submission. When I was watching this episode for the first time, I was totally expecting Batman to go as hard as he did during the Arkham games, but he didn't end up beating up a crowd of dudes. Instead, he just tried to make the best out of a bad situation. By the way, this is the reason as to why Kevin Conroy's Batman is one of my favorite takes on the character. You can actually feel the deep care Batman has for his villains. He doesn't just want to beat people into submission. He wants Gotham's worst to get rehabilitated and turn their lives around. Even Christian Bale and Ben Affleck's Batman did not show that level of empathy. So there you have it, folks. Even though On Leather Wings isn't regarded as the best episode of the series, it's still highly underrated as it sets the stage for Batman the Animated Series. My only criticism is that Batman survived things that he should not have survived whatsoever. For instance, Man-Bat was pulling Batman around the city at speeds well over 80 kilometers an hour. If anyone got hit at speeds like that, they'd die from blunt force trauma. But this is pretty forgivable as Batman has accomplished much larger and more ridiculous feats than that. I'm pretty sure a normal person would die of exhaustion beating up hundreds of guys in one night. But that's pretty par for the course for Batman. But what do you think? Do you think that On Leather Wings is an underrated Batman story? What do you think makes this Batman story so special? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. As always, thanks a million for watching. Please be sure to give a like and subscribe to Reverb Comics so that you do not miss out on our awesome content. Stay groovy.